Hey kids, Walter, Community College here, coming back at you with another video. Today I'll be talking about why I believe Canada isn't a real country. Now this title is kind of clickbait, obviously Canada is real. Obviously there's a political entity called Canada that operates as a sovereign nation with full independence. But from a cultural standpoint, Canada doesn't exist. There is no Canadian culture. Canadians will tell you they have a culture. They'll tell you that they're distinct, but they're not really. What I like to think is that they're a part of American culture. The average British Columbian has more in common than someone from Washington than even someone from the prairie provinces, let alone the more Atlantic provinces or Montreal. They're just not. They're just more. These people have more in common than whoever's closest to them on the border than other people in their nation. So at that point, can you really say Canada is its own cultural sphere? I guess it's within almost entirely the American one, I'd say. If Canadians have like a celebrity or a cultural figure, they just move to Los Angeles, like American celebrities. Now, granted, a lot of people internationally move to America if they get famous, but not as much as Canadians. It's because Canadians just find it easy to integrate into American society because they've already lived in American society their entire lives. Unless you're a professional on Canadian law and you study it, you can't really know the specific differences. You can't really list them. Or if you think there's differences, you're just listing a bunch of propagandistic rhetoric. Like, oh, we're like America, but we're more free. We're better than America in some slightly progressive, vague way. We're like America, but we like having immigrants here or something. I don't know. Even though a lot of those values are just getting rid of old Canadian values and replacing them with American values. There's like two types of people that like to think Canada is a country culturally. There's the loyalists who think, oh yeah, we're the ancestors of Franco-British colonizers, We did... we have an English cultural background, we're very English. And then there's the types that just want to copy the American identity and say, we're a nation of immigrants. We're multicultural, which you can't really have both. And that's kind of a conflict of interest in the Canadian propaganda sphere. The more liberal kinds of propaganda went out. I wouldn't call it explicitly leftist because Canada doesn't really have a left like the America. Like, it has the same issues as America, where it doesn't have a left. Which is another big thing. They like to think that they have a multi-party system that's a big difference from America. One, it's just the American two-party system, but you have... My bad, there was something in my throat. But you have Bloc Québécois and the NDP. That's not really a big deal. That's not a big difference. They like to think some of them have gone as far as to delude themselves that Canada is closer to Europe. I guess politically, culturally, that's actually insane than it is to the U.S. Which maybe, but Canada is more in the British style of governance rather than a European, and there's a very big distinction between the two. Most European nations had their governments and constitutions formed after World War II, for the most part. But with the United Kingdom, it never had that, and it has its own very specific style of governance where it's based around tradition rather than actually having a strong constitution. And then that's fucked up a lot. Like this, it's the biggest difference Canada and the US have, and it's fucked up every single country involved in that system of governance. The UK, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, South Africa. There's just a ton of nations that have been fucked up because of that style of governance, and that's not something to be proud of. You shouldn't be proud of having a nation with a very vague constitution that's very weak. It doesn't really guarantee your rights. You know, Canada has the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, but the government can just say, well, you know, we can break that if we want to. So is that really a Charter of Rights and Freedoms, or is it more like a list of things that the Canadian government says is bad unless we do it? That's just not a way you should govern a nation. It's just not good. It's not something to be proud of. And that's all Canadians really have as something that distinguishes them from America. If Canadians didn't have their government, they wouldn't be that different. They wouldn't be different at all. If tomorrow we turned Canada's provinces into a bunch of states, nothing would change for the life of a daily Canadian. Like some arbitrary changes maybe, but they live their lives exactly the same. My point is, Canadians overstate what their culture is, and a lot of that, it leads to arrogance. Really, it makes them an arrogant people that constantly need to prove they're better than Americans. That's a bad thing, and I think Canadians should just grow up and realize that their nation will never be distinct. They will always be closer to Americans than they are to other Canadians, and that will never ever change. The only distinct thing Canada has is Quebec. The only thing. But a lot of people outside Quebec don't even understand Quebec and Canada. So that's the reason why they want independence. If they get independence, what does Canada have? What does Canada have after Quebec gets independence? What do they have that makes them different from America? Exactly. Nothing. Their government, you need more to make a country than just a government. Anyways, that's about it, guys. See ya.